What is up, everybody? This is Josh again, back with another video on my channel, Tech and Ish. So what I want to talk to you about today is going to be Dave Chappelle's new stand-up show on Netflix called Sticks and Stones. Now, if you know anything about Dave Chappelle, he is probably like the most honest comedian out there. He doesn't care what wall he pushes through, whose feelings he hurts. He just talks about everything. He basically just doesn't care. And that's kind of one of the things that I like about him. He's basically honest. A lot of comedians out here now, they kind of like hold back on certain subjects because they feel like if they talk about this subject, then they're just going to get a lot of backlash on everything. And Dave Chappelle, you can tell he gives zero F's. He just doesn't care at all. In this new stand-up, now if you are sensitive to certain subjects that I'm going to throw out, you do not want to hear this because, you know, some of this probably will get you mad. A couple people in the audience, you can tell that they were laughing about it because they know it's all just jokes. But other couple people, you can see that they were kind of getting a little sensitive about it. You know, they don't like talking about certain situations like that, or they just don't like hearing about it, or people joking about it. In this stand-up, he talks about molestation. He talks about Michael Jackson on how he molested kids and basically what he did to them. He talks about LBGT community, and he basically calls them the L's, the B's, the G's, and the T's. And he basically just kind of goes off on that. He ends up talking about how he just doesn't really like the way the world is now because everybody is just so sensitive on everything, and he just brings it all out. So a couple things I want to talk about is some of the stuff he said about Michael Jackson. Now, some of the stuff, it was kind of, you know, you gotta watch it. It was just, I don't know. But he starts talking about how Michael Jackson molested these kids and how Dave Chappelle's kind of like the victim blamer. He brought out Chris Brown on how he beat up Rihanna, and he ends up throwing out, well, what did Rihanna do to get beat up? You know, there's another side of the story. She probably did something, and that's why she got beat up. So she kind of, you know, in other words, yeah. So he kind of talks about that. And then he talks about Michael Jackson molesting these kids and basically like saying, well, what were the kids wearing within that time? Maybe he saw something that they were wearing and that basically made him want to molest these kids. So that kind of what he threw out. And then he ends up kind of like throwing out, since Michael Jackson is dead and it's been so long, you know, why does it matter? You know, people are still talking about it. Why does it matter? He kind of, you know, says a little bit of that right there. And he also throws in a joke, basically saying that if he were to be molested, he would rather it be molested by Michael Jackson than some uncle that you're going to see at a family reunion. That not a lot of people can actually say, hey, I got molested by Michael Jackson, rather than saying, hey, I got molested by an uncle or so. So he gets on the touchy subject about that. You know, a lot of people who may have been molested in their lifetime, you know, they might feel some type of way about this, but you can hear the audience laughing about this, and you do see a little bit of audience like, you know, talking, kind of giving them that look like, really, you're gonna say something like this? He ends up throwing out the LBGT community, how he calls them the L's, the B's, the G's, and the T's, as I mentioned before. So he talks about how the L's, the B's, and the G's are all in one car. He talks about how the B's and the G's hate the L's because of the L's being stingy, that they like to go, you know, both ways. You know, he goes into all of that and just talks about the whole LBGT community on basically how they are, how people see them as. And it's kind of a sensitive subject that I know a lot of comedians will just not even talk about that because they're going to receive a lot of backlash from this. But Dave Chappelle, he just really doesn't care about this. He talks about how this world is on, people would end up bringing something that you did 5, 10, 20 years ago. He brought out Kevin Hart's issue. Basically, what happened to Kevin Hart a long time ago was the fact that he was kind of talking bad about gay people, that if his son was to ever be gay, he would grab like a dollhouse and just smash it on him. And he kind of, you know, started joking about that, saying, you know, if there's a dollhouse, that means you went out to go buy a dollhouse just so you can break it on him. So he kind of gets on that touchy subject as well. he ends up talking about how it was Kevin Hart's dream to host the Oscars. And since that whole thing came out about his tweets back in the day, he didn't want to host the Oscars after all that came out. And he basically kind of threw that out, that people would dig up stuff on you years ago and try to use it on you today. There is one thing that I actually saw, it has nothing to do with the Dave Chappelle thing, but I did see how there's Shawn Mendes. He's actually getting some backlash about an old tweet back in the day, how he said that 98% of black people know how to dance. And a lot of people just didn't like that tweet, but that was years ago whenever he was younger. But now it's barely coming up. So it's like, you know, they love Shawn Mendes now, but yet now that they see this, they're automatically treating him some other kind of way, when knowing the fact that this happened years ago. And I think whatever happens in the past should stay in the past. That's my thoughts, but you might think something different. I don't know, but I think whatever's there should stay there. Judge a person on what they do now, not what they did then, because of course they were just young and naive. Things changed within time, so you know, just throw that little message out there. So back to Dave Chappelle's thing. So like I said, he is an honest person in this show. He just talks about a lot of stuff. So if you are extremely sensitive on certain things, do not watch the show, because he talks about a lot of stuff. As some of you know, he does have an Asian wife, and he even talks about that. He ends up doing his face like if he was Chinese, and he ends up throwing out that he's Chinese, but people shouldn't take that to heart because he actually has an Asian wife and his kids are Blackanese, basically. He said that before in the other stand-up show. So if you like Dave Chappelle, you like how honest he is, I think you should watch it. You know, there is some laughs there, here and there. It does talk about a lot of sensitive issues that a lot of people will steer clear of. So since it is kind of like a sensitive subject and you might get offended by these words, then I suggest you don't watch it at all, because some people might get mad. He's receiving a lot of backlash online. I saw a couple YouTube videos where a lot of people are basically saying what he was talking about wasn't right and he shouldn't be talking about that. Netflix should not be paying him for saying stuff like this, but you know, the way Netflix sees it, or the way other people see it, or the way comedians see it, it's all jokes. He's just talking about things that other people have been wanting to say, but they don't say it because of the way things are now. So this is just a little quick review, kind of just talking to you what is in this stand-up comedy show. So proceed to it with caution. So with that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.